What is up, fine folks? Welcome on inside yet another edition of the Business of Social podcast powered by STN Digital. I'm your host, David Brickley. Each and every show, we talk to the experts and also talk about stories and, get into the ever-changing digital social marketing landscape. This show is no different. Episode 60. I'm always joined by producer Will, who is known throughout the world now on emails, people shouting out producer Will around the office, virtual office, calling him producer Will. It's, it's kind of like Barstool, man. You're like the big cat of STN, I think.
That may be a bit of a reach, but I have to check on the Twitter handle, see if @producerwill's.
Ooh, I like that. It's way better than whatever you do, though. W3.
Okay, look, here's the thing. My name is apparently a popular name, so all iterations of Will Kelly are taken. So
even Will _ Kelly's taken?
Oh, it's all taken. I've looked for like WK.
What about the...
all that stuff.
The real Will Kelly? I would go with producer Will. I'm sure that's available.
I'll have to take a look.
I like that. All right. So episode number 60, as we do each and every show. First of all, before we get into it, we have Courtney Bagby. She's a CEO of Little Red Management. I know a lot of you brands out there are looking to up your influencer game. I know here at STN, a lot of our clients are asking, hey, can we do an influencer campaign alongside our paid media campaign, alongside our giveaways and our organic distribution and ambassadorships? So she works with Will. She works with a ton of cast members on various shows across MTV, ABC, CBS, your Bachelors, who else? Your Teen
Bachelor,
Moms, right?
The Teen Mom, yeah. A lot on the entertainment television side.
The Circle on Netflix, I know she mentioned. So that'll be exciting. But as we do each and every show, this is episode 60. This has got to be an NBA center or some NFL linebackers. Like we've been in the linebackers here for a while, but from what I see on your face, 60 is not looking too hot once again.
No, it's not great. I'm just going to hit you with a few names, and then I'll give you a quick storage. I think.
You know what we may have to change this to is the age of like celebrities.
Yeah, that may...
Because 60, 70, 80 is going to be just a bunch
once you get into like the late
nobodies.
60s, it may be
until you get to 73, Dennis Rodman, I mean.
Get the 80s, you can start getting the receivers in there. But
that's true.
That's 20 episodes from now.
Yeah.
All right. So just a bunch of 60s. Chuck Bednarik, Otto Graham, Tommy Nobis, Otis Sistrunk, which is just an incredible name. Jose Theodore, all those guys are in the NFL, by the way. Jose Theodore, goalie for the Panthers. And Otto, so I think it's going to come down to Jose and Otto here. And let me make a quick case for Jose.
Okay.
Otto Graham is a Hall of Fame quarterback for the Cleveland Browns.
Quarterback?
But he wore number 60 for 2 seasons.
Ugh. The quarterback that wore number 60, I can't get behind that.
Jose Theodore gets us into the goalie game, which I don't think we've ever dabbled into.
All right.
Also won the MVP and the Hart Trophy. So,
wow.
And 2 All-Stars.
This is the Jose Theodore podcast right here on the Business of Social. All right. She is the CEO of Little Red Management. Again, they work in brand partnerships and management specific for influencers. So hopefully you guys will get some value out of this one. Courtney Bagby joins us on episode 60 right here on the Business of Social. All right, she is the CEO of Little Red Management. They do brand partnerships, management specific for influencers. Her name's Courtney Bagby. Courtney, thanks so much for the time.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. I know we got connected. Ashley I was like, I don't know, like on one of the first ever podcasts, like probably episode 5 or 10. This one's 60, but I know we got connected through Ashley. She's awesome. And I'm so glad that we're talking today.
Yeah, no, Ashley's amazing, and kind of thank her for a lot of kind of where I am today, which is sort of crazy.
Exactly. So I want to dig into your story a little bit here at the top, just to give people a sense, because, you graduated college back in 2015, and you mentioned that was kind of the first year Bachelor contestants were really starting to get a following on Instagram. And then you just realized, like, I want to work in this area. Like, I want to be able to help. Really, I've talked about this a lot. Like, how do I help parlay this celebrity or this success into more business revenue or revenue streams, if you will? So excited to kind of hear about, how you initially got started and why you were so passionate about, this is definitely a business I can get into and help people with.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm not from LA. I'm from San Francisco, went to school in Colorado, like nothing to do with entertainment, really. I mean, no one in my family, nothing. And there was this time, like one time where me and my best friend drove down to LA, and we went to the Grove, which is like the hot spot in LA. Like definitely can see celebrities. And we actually came down for like a Demi Lovato book signing. And like, I will say I am the ultimate fangirl. So like it's like now I've gotten better for sure, but like, that's how I kind of became passionate about this space. Right. So went to a book signing at that Barnes and Noble and like saw it. I mean, there was a bunch of people. I don't know if you remember the show X Factor, but they're like the whole season's contestants were at the Grove that night, and I met everybody. And I just remember like being on such a high, being like, this is so cool. Like, like taking pictures with celebrities. And I mean, I think anyone who's not from here thinks that, right?
Yep.
And I kind of went back to school, and I mean, I was in social media. I had a couple partnerships. It was social media marketing. Already knew, I mean, I studied journalism like you and did advertising, and it was kind of, it just was so interesting to me, the social media space. And I didn't know if it was ever going to be possible to like work with influencers or how to, you know, how to even get in. Like when I would talk to people about advertising, they'd be like, oh, you need to go work at the bigger agencies. Like they're so mean.
But you overall, you saw that gap in the industry. Like, wait a second, these folks have stardom. People follow them. They're fangirls like me. And there's definitely value to what they're doing on social because they have such a great following. They can parlay that reality TV success into that, which I couldn't agree more. I'm surprised. I think it's I don't know. I think it's a multi-billion dollar industry that still is severely untapped. The way I look at it on this show, it's like everybody has these amazing TV channels and nobody's selling commercials against it. So I think that's going to change, right, in the next 4 to 5 years for sure. I'm interested to hear your take on this because you're in this game so much, and so many brands get influencers wrong, and it's like a sexy word. Like, let's just do an influencer campaign, but there's not a lot of thought behind it. But when you first sit down with a potential new client that has earned some fame on reality TV or has a little bit of stardom, what's the first thing you tell them to try to parlay that new celebrity into an actual business, into actual, additional revenue streams?
That's funny because, I mean, I have these phone calls all the time, right? They come off The Bachelor and they're like, now what? Yeah. Like, I can make this much money in a year. What? And it's kind of like, it's terrifying to them. But I think the thing that is actually the most important for me to understand as a manager is kind of like, what is their thing going to be and how can I help them figure that out? Right. Like, and I start with just asking questions like, tell me about yourself. Like, I know I saw you on TV, but like, tell me, like, what do you like to do? What's going to be easy for
like, not everybody should
content?
Be hawking fit tea, there's ways to get a little more.
Oh, no. Well, no. And like, the thing is, like, if you want to be a fitness influencer, you can be, and I will help you guide you to be a great one. Right. Versus and create great content, right?
Yeah. Being genuine to who you are and how it makes sense for your audience, right?
Yeah, because people think like, oh, there's too many fitness influencers out there. No, like if you can do it right and you can still do it.
Yeah, and I think Nike employed this strategy. Their original influencers were the Michael Jordans, right? And the Kobe Bryants. And they really, instead of just telling people to buy their sneakers all the time, they got sneakers in the hands of the most influential people, which is what that part of influence that influencers are using. What do you think most brands get wrong when they want to run their big influencer campaign, regardless of platform?
I feel like, and I'll probably talk about this a lot, but a lot of brands, I think, come in thinking that they just want to sell when it comes to influencers. I'm going to go on Instagram, I'm going to book these influencers, and they're going to sell out all the products. Yeah. And I feel like that's so wrong. Like, do you drive by a billboard and know how many people are actually seeing it? I mean, at least you can see how many impressions you're getting on the photo or whatever it is, versus just kind of blindly buying a spot somewhere. Like someone said, oh, $5,000, I'm going to go buy a billboard. I'm like, really? Like, why wouldn't you do Facebook marketing where you can
actually see the data?
Target. Like target the customers. So that's where I feel like it's the number one biggest thing, because I think you're not always going to sell on the first time. You're not.
That being said, what have you seen be most successful? Because I mean, we talk about, upper funnel marketing versus lower funnel marketing. And I'm sure you've seen situations, like you said, if you're just thinking you're going to blast an audience with anything without introducing it, without educating the audience of what the heck that product is, and assume it's going to be bought immediately, there needs to be a little bit of awareness there. But does any campaign come to mind for you for one of your, well, let me back up for a second. Can you talk a little bit about who you represent, like some people that we may know, and where you found like your niche to be? 'Cause I know it's a lot of Bachelor contestants. We talked about Ashley I, of course, but what's kind of your base if a brand's trying to go after a certain demo? Like, what's your demo that you do a good job of?
It's interesting. I totally will say reality TV, in the sense of I work with a lot of people from Teen Mom, a lot of people from The Challenge, a lot of people from Bachelor, Big Brother, Survivor. I work with a couple people from Netflix, so from The Circle, and a couple like a couple actors too.
Awesome.
Sammy from The Circle is one of my clients. So if you watch that show, I work with Corey and Taylor from Teen Mom. I work with McKenna, Kelsey, Tammy, and Natasha from last season of Bachelor.
Nice.
So that's where people, might know. I work with Taylor Nolan, do a lot of work with her, a couple people from YouTube. So, and I'm learning that realm a little bit, but they're more like influencers versus reality, right? Which is like brands, some brands won't even work with reality. So, I was able to tap into that market a little bit.
That being said, so with those type of clients, like what has been the most successful campaigns that you've seen that is genuine, that maybe does return a really awesome ROI after maybe a longer partnership? Like if you could just create the perfect partnership, what does that look like based on just previous analytics?
Yeah. I don't do that many affiliate programs, right? Like in general, just because it is like very hard to, it's hard. You have to put a lot of work into it, right? To like make your money back. But I do have a client who has worked with a supplement company. And I feel like this is, actually I have two examples of long-term things that have really, long-term partnerships that have really succeeded.
Yeah.
So, it was with a supplement brand. He didn't really see any sales for like the third month.
Okay.
Right. So he would post, I think it was one post a month, like 4 to 8 times on stories, like just one swipe up. He really didn't see anything until like a few months. And now a year and a half later, he's sold over $90,000 for the supplement brand. So like just being able to like repetition, right? You start believing in them, and it's way better to have one brand, right? And stick with them, and you'll make those sales.
And I think too, I don't think this was true maybe 5 or 6 years ago, but now everybody has kind of caught on to what people are doing, like an influencer having a sponsor post. And I think if they know it's a one-time cash grab, the audience is kind of like smart to that, and they may not really believe it. But if you're promoting it over time, then your audience is like, wow, Courtney really loves this supplement. She uses it every day, every month. Now I'm going to buy into it because now I know it's just not a one-time cash grab. And that's got to be part of your earlier statement, like create brand awareness up front, work them down the funnel, make sure you get that brand education. And then it seems like you've seen better results when these brands do a longer term partnership because the audience believes and of course like appreciates that type of genuine partnership.
Well, yeah. And I think sometimes I don't understand, to be honest, like why people do go book hundreds of thousands of influencers.
For one post too. Yeah.
For one post. And then I'm like, are you even booking people that are consistent on their platform all the time, that genuinely love the product? I have clients where it's like, and maybe it's also like great for me for a long-term partnership, right? I do think that it is great for the brands too, because it's like you're getting to see if it will if something will happen eventually.
Yeah,
right?
I think
it's a risk there too, but
yeah, and it goes back to like, I think not laziness, but it takes more time to seed out 20 influencers that work perfectly for your brand. You rather just pay a big influencer like one check and hope that it all works out. But I agree. I think what I've seen too in our business is if really going after specific influencers that really fit the brand and the values and everything like that. Plus kind of having a more longer term relationship instead of just a one hit wonder. It just works better, and it makes sense if you study marketing, like just being able to be out in front of people more often, and that education part of it just builds brand loyalty and brand trust and all those things.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, I really believe in like a 4-part strategy when it comes to increasing your distribution. Obviously, you have ambassadors and your organic, maybe your owned and operated platforms. You have paid media. You have giveaways where you can ask fans to participate and tag people and things like that. And then you have influencer bucket where you can really find people in your clear demo that can talk about your brand in a much more organic way rather than on your owned and operated channels. Like, hey, we're awesome. You can only talk about yourself so much. So people are like, yeah, we get it. You love yourself. So, I mean, just for any brand, like how important do you think it is to incorporate some type of influencer strategy with any product out there? Like, I mean, I'm assuming you're a big believer and you would say it needs to be part of almost everything.
Well, yes. I mean, of course, but I also think mostly more than ever because of COVID, because people can't just hire photographers and videographers all the time. I think influencers are more important ever than before. I mean, truly, it is worth it to go hire someone to create content for you, even if it's a micro influencer, right? Those are where the micros come in and say, okay, here, now we get more content too. I think it's all about the content at the end of the day.
And I think so too. One thing that we really, really drive home is you got to allow the influencer to do what they do best and not, say, hey, like, can you say this exact word in the copy? Can you say, hey, my name is Courtney and I love this supplement? And it comes off so unnatural that, again, I think the fan base that follows that person because they love them so much, they know this is not working out that well. So we always say, like, let the if they do like dorky stuff, if, Ashley I was all about like her dating life and how that's going, like let her lean into that because that's why her followers follow her. So let you be kind of like a product placement inside of that story rather than so many brands just try to like shove down their messaging that comes from PR or what have you. And I just see time and time again that stuff tanking. I always make fun of Anthony Davis on the Lakers. He has a Ruffles sponsorship and it's awful. It's like bad creative, like buy Ruffles at your local Vons or whatever. And nobody that follows Anthony Davis wants to see that. They want to see highlights. They want to see behind the scenes. They want to see his life. And if you're going to partner with them, like be a part of those moments.
Let him do his thing and be creative. Well, I've definitely been seeing more of that than ever.
I agree.
Of people being like, okay, we're going to hire them to do this. Let them do kind of their thing a little bit. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, here's a creative direction and go from here.
Anything that you think brands, we have a lot of like CMOs and director of marketings and things like that want to use influencers, but they're as part of their strategy, especially when you're talking about like new TV shows launching, new products launching, they want to use that as part of their paid media strategy, really. Like, let's try, Facebook, Instagram boosting, but let's also put aside $50,000, $100,000 for an influencer campaign. Anything that brands should know just about approaching the right influencers, about getting in touch, and making sure there's a right match?
I mean, it's so hard because I feel like when I talk to brands, right? Because I'm not going to be here and be like, oh, these are my clients that always do great. Here's all the analytics, stuff like that. Like, I do recommend those agencies that work with hundreds and thousands of influencers on certain brands, right? Like lifestyle, whatever it may be, of like, so that they know who does well for those brands. Instead of kind of blindly going to book kind of people that you think is a good match, like I do think that it's worth it to pay some of these agencies 20% or whatever it is, probably more. I don't even know these days because I never even thought about being an agency, whatever, to find those right
Because you're right, because it does. It just takes so much time to actually roll your sleeves up and find the right micro influencers that speak so well to your core demo.
Yeah.
That if you're not going to take that time to do that, then you're kind of potentially flushing money down the toilet. So you might as well give a percentage to someone that can take that time and make those recommendations.
Demo. Yeah. Look at the demos. Look at all that stuff where like, people come to me and I'm like, you come to me to book the talent, I can send all the demos, all that, but then it's ultimately up to the creative that was hired, the agency that was hired also, to be like, are they a good fit? And
also too, like just looking at the analytics, like you could have 1 million followers, but if your engagement rate is 0.5%, your organic reach is not going to really be super helpful in that regard, especially if it's more addy and it's not like what the audience likes to see anyway. So,
well, and what I will say is like, my favorite piece of advice, which I don't know if I should be saying this as a manager, but these days I, as a manager, work really hard to make sure that my talent are as active and going to be engaging that day when they post a brand partnership, that they're doing a Q&A, whatever they can to get their engagement up so that it does well for the brand. But a lot of managers don't. I mean, they'll let their talent posted story with no other stories before and after. And I'm like,
it's tough.
What are you doing? So my piece of advice too is like let's warm up the algorithm a little bit so we can have our best chance of success. Right. 100%. And I think like also my biggest piece of advice, and like, I don't mind this as a manager, is like, if there's story views or whatever, if there's story views and you're hiring someone that you think get 30K and they get 5K, put something in the contract that says, if you don't hit 70% of story views or 70%, we want to make up story frame or something. I mean, that's my biggest piece of advice for people that are starting out, of like, don't just pay these people and give,
and hope for the best. That's a good piece of advice.
Yeah. Like, cause I've definitely had brands even where like, they say, oh, like they need to hit these impressions. Otherwise they need to do a whole nother reel. Those people I don't like, because that is hard, right? If you booked someone 6 months ago and you're trying to get them to hit a reach like over and over, like that's hard. Mm-hmm. But if you're doing story views, like, and small things like that, where you're just trying to make sure that it's successful for the client, I get it,
Absolutely. I know you mostly deal with Instagram, but I know you were talking earlier about you're excited about the potential of TikTok too, because usually these Bachelor contestants and reality show, they go to Instagram, they get pretty a mass following. But are you also talking to your clients about making sure that the distribution of their following as well? Like if they go all in on Instagram and all of a sudden the algorithm changes, it can really hurt their business, right? So it's so much better to be on YouTube and on Instagram and potentially have a following on TikTok, and drive to the different platforms just for their own benefit, to make sure they're not too tied into one.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm going to be honest, like I have this conversation all the time with my talent. I think for me as a manager, like, I don't want them to start a YouTube if they're not going to post weekly YouTube content.
Right, of course. Yeah.
If they're not going to create TikToks, I mean, TikTok, you have to post like every day. Mm-hmm. Like if you're not going to be active on that, then don't do it. But if you're already creating video content on Instagram,
cross promote
every week, then why aren't you doing it on YouTube, right? Like if you already have that content, like I have people that do IGTVs every week on a Monday, and I'm like, okay, that seems silly that you're not on YouTube too, right? Like it's just not.
Or create that macro content and create micro content on TikTok type thing. So
yeah. But I'm always about like, I'm always trying to tell my talent to be consistent and do what they think is feasible for them, and not to overwhelm them, because like really at the end of the day, like they do need to be putting out content a few times a week at minimum. I mean, people reach out to me for management. I'm like, do you not post 3 times? Yeah. Like, do you post 3 times a week? And I'm like, sorry, I can't. You can't.
Yeah, you can't build an audience if your last 3 posts are advertisements and you're not mixing in more.
Or in August.
Right. Yeah.
Which is February.
Yeah. What do you think? I'd like to get your thoughts. I've said my thoughts many times on this show, but in terms of the pandemic and COVID, obviously the traditional marketing levers were turned off there, and all we had was social. So, what changes did you see in your business and what people were looking for, and how do you think this period of time changes us as far as marketing and distribution as we go forward in the next 5 years?
God, it's such an interesting question because I did start my company 2.5 years ago now, or almost 2 years ago. That's it. And so last year, it was kind of like, it was very hard for me that first year because I had to learn and be adaptable of like everything canceling on me. And then like all of a sudden, everything ramping up to all these apps. I mean, the apps like were crazy, right? Like I feel like all the apps wanted to put spend behind, right? Like to influencers because they were like, well, we can't do anything else. And like everyone's on their phones. And so, I mean, I am curious to see how it is the next 5 years, because I think because people couldn't do content themselves and were in office, I think that it's been busier than ever in the influencer space because of this. I mean, I think it's always been huge, but now especially, the brand's not in it.
I've noticed the same thing too. Like Fortune 500 brands that didn't take social seriously, like you and I have known this for 10 years, but they're gonna be out of business pretty soon if they don't have a strong social presence, if they don't utilize paid media, if they don't utilize e-com and influencers and that whole thing. Like, it's pretty imperative for, as you can probably speak to. Yeah, absolutely. What do you, I guess, my last question for you would be just to kind of wrap it all up for us it sounds like from an influencer standpoint, you're constantly preaching consistency, warming up that algorithm, making sure that you have behind the scenes content kind of mixed in with the branded content as well. But I guess on both the influencer side and on the brand side, any final advice or tips that you can give our audience to make sure that they can hit their campaigns out of the park? Yeah,
I mean, I think the couple, sorry, I'm totally freezing. But I think that the biggest thing, and we talked about this earlier, is the longer term partnership and also being able to use those photos and that content in whitelisting, paid media, targeting to the right audience. And I've been seeing way more of that. And even people not even having the influencers posting on their page, but just getting whitelisting access.
Interesting.
Yeah, which has been interesting, I think, because I don't even know. I'm like, I don't even know where to start for pricing, because they end up being a model in that case, right?
Yeah, right.
But a celebrity endorser, so it's tricky.
Awesome. Well, Courtney Bagby, thank you so much, CEO of Little Red Management, with all the advice and insight into influencer management, which I know a lot of people are continuing to learn and adjust and evolve. So thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Courtney.
Thanks.
All right, there she was, Courtney Bagby from Little Red Management. Thanks so much for coming on the program. As we always say, make sure to check us out on iTunes. 5 stars would be appreciated. We're also on YouTube and Spotify if it floats your boat. I'd like to thank the producer, Will Kelly, of course, David Furker, for setting up the show as he always does. This has been another edition of the Business of Social podcast. My name is David Brickley, and this has been powered by STN Digital.